This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss our memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
We just
I
have to
felt like,
relax our throat muscles for this one.
I felt like Mike Myers playing Elon Musk there, like glitch. Like I just lost myself for a second.
Oh, you were lost.
Maybe they didn't notice, but now I made a big deal of it. So
It was fine. We wouldn't have noticed at all until you said something. It's fine.
Maybe the key is to relax my throat muscles. That's what I need to do. Okay.
Yes.
That ties into what we're talking about. Before we talk about that, we have some big news here this week at Pop Culture. Something that we're excited about, something that we love, and Pete's going to share that right now.
About our new member on Buy Me a Coffee.
Yes.
We would like to welcome Kent Steen to our family, our podcast family.
Our
he
yearbook.
made a generous, our yearbook. He's now a classmate, right? He's officially a
upperclassman even.
He's an upperclassman. Yes.
How often this happens, folks? We don't quite have this down yet.
We mentioned him in one of our more recent episodes. We talked about he is a juggler. I don't know that he's a magician, but he definitely is a juggler and a Taekwondo black belt, and has been an instructor. I don't know if he still does it or not, but good Cobra Kai tie-in. I think with him, is he a sensei? Is that what you'd call him? Maybe that's what he is.
Ask him when he comes on the show.
Right.
I don't know if Taekwondo has senseis or how the whole hierarchy works, but he's our sensei. We can say that.
Oh wow!
So
that's a
welcome
honor.
and thank you to Sensei Kent Steen.
Sensei Steen. Yes, it's very exciting. And if you didn't see it, not only did he join our membership and support us, which is eternally grateful, but on the social medias, he also posted a homemade rap about our show, which is pretty fantastic. Although it focuses more on my family, who he's a little obsessed with sometimes. But
we all are, though. We all are.
I know. He's always talking about my brother, who is one of his best friends, and my sister, who won the homecoming queen in Tyler, and he's always got something to say about that. So it's a little more focused on that, but it definitely is a pretty cool little rap about our show, and nobody's ever done that before. So thank you, Kent. That's pretty great. We love it.
I will say too, I do want to add that his mother was my first grade teacher. I don't know that you had him, Brad. I think we brought this up more.
We had this exact discussion 2 weeks ago, and that's when I told him to listen, and then he joined our group. So it's already out there. She
definitely was one of my favorite teachers that I've had, and so she was awesome. So thank you to her as well for being such a wonderful teacher in first grade.
Yes. All right, Gifford, you were going to say something?
I was going to try to find his handle. He'd asked us to.
Oh yes, it's Go4 Go the number 4 the Juggler. Go4 the Juggler on Facebook and Instagram. And here's the deal. So we've followed him actually, and I've seen him on there before. But I looked a little closer this week when he signed up. He has over. Let me check here. Like 200 or 23,000 followers on Instagram.
Just a couple
with his juggling site. So this is a guy who has got a following out there, and that makes it even more cool that he's decided to support us. Go for the Juggler. 23.4 thousand followers on Instagram. Very impressive, Kent. Well done.
Yeah. Does he have any coattails that we can hop on at all?
Well, that's the hope.
Yeah.
Get those people to follow us now and join up. And then we can replace our equipment, which we're finding out we're going to have a problem with here in a couple months. If anybody wants to support our show, we are going to be really happy to accept that from you, because we're going to run into some trouble here in a little bit.
Thank you to Skype. They are going out of business. They are... well, I don't know if are they like run by Microsoft or something.
Yeah, Microsoft. They want people to go.
Microsoft.
Anyway,
Microsoft is not going out of business.
Is going away, and it's going to end up costing us a lot of money now. So thanks, Kent. That was a nice little drop to help us get started on that new adventure.
I just took out a second mortgage.
Might have to.
Mhm.
Well, enough about that. Gifford's got our last 1982 topic raring and ready to go here tonight.
Yeah, we are going to get into Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Excellent film. Came out August 13th of 82. Had a $5 million budget and domestically raked in $27.1 million. So did pretty well for itself.
I forgot I was going to say one more thing if I can pause.
Please do.
It's funny, though, because when you drafted it, we all agreed this would have been our number one draft pick because it is in a year that we didn't like the movies very much. This was clearly the top choice. But we were 6. We weren't watching Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982. So I picked Savannah Smiles, which it turned out all these people online were talking about. It was so fun. It was just out of nowhere. So I found it's on the Roku channel for free, and I watched it last weekend. And I'll tell you what, it holds up. The first 20 minutes or so, it's very dated and old looking, but it's not bad. But once you get through that, and you get to this cute girl and the thing that happens with her and these, kidnappers, which aren't really kidnappers, it is the sweetest, most wonderful movie. And I remember as a kid just crying at this movie I couldn't control myself. It was obnoxious. I haven't cried that hard at a movie in years. And it was worth it. It was amazing. My wife walked in with like 10 minutes of the movie left. And she's like, yeah, I remember that movie. But, she didn't really remember anything. She was tearing up just in the little 10 minutes she saw of the end of it because it is so sweet. I love that movie. It was a fine number one choice for me. And it was really fun. Matt from the Spinning the Wheel podcast was out there talking about it. My sister remembers that movie. And my friend, one of our other supporters, Rappy, who will be on our show later this year, he brought up how he saw it on his 11th birthday and remembered going there. So that was fun, and I watched it, and I suggest you watch it too, because it is just a fantastic little movie.
How do we segue from that movie to the movie we're going to be talking about?
Well, okay, here. So the girl in that, she's the same age basically as us and Drew Barrymore, who E.T. came out that year. She looks a lot like Drew Barrymore, although she's probably cuter. She is the cutest thing you've ever seen. And you're like, okay, why didn't she do anything else? So at 21, she died of a heroin overdose and things didn't end well for her. So it's very sad. God. But speaking of heroin and drugs, that does kind of tie into tonight.
Okay, all right. You really pulled it off there. It might have been a little bit of a stretch and a little bit of a
that was a long way around.
Right. So yeah, her name was Bridget. I forget her last name now, but it's really sad what happened. But there you go. That's the story of Savannah Smiles. Back to Phoebe Cates.
For you. Let's go to Phoebe Cates. Well, first let's talk about one Amy Heckerling. Because she this was her feature film debut. Of course, we've already talked about Amy Heckerling on this show because we have covered Clueless and we have covered European Vacation.
Begrudging.
Yes, but I was trying to think. I should have went back and looked. But has there been another director that we've covered
3 times? Good point.
Right.
Of all people, that's really good. Now I will say too that those are 2 good episodes, but even though we begrudgingly did European Vacation because none of us like it, it's a great episode. Because our friend Dave was on and he made the case that it's a good movie and it's a really good episode with the back and forth. So
Dave did agree.
It's worth it for that.
But of course, we haven't had a bad episode yet, though, so it's sort of a given.
Good point.
This could be the first.
Until now.
And another thing we haven't covered the American Office, correct? But we did cover with Dave the original Office. She did do 1 episode of the American Office as well in the first season. So we broached the topic there. She's also done a couple Look Who's Talking movies. So we've covered quite a bit of Amy Heckerling on this show. And of course, this again, like I say, was her first feature film, along with a couple cast members, Nicolas Cage and Eric Stoltz.
Excuse me, Nicolas Coppola.
I'm sorry. Yes, he was credited as Nicolas Coppola, non-speaking role.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
here for Nick Cage. But
and I forgot he was in this movie, and then I was past the point where you see him in the restaurant where there was the football game, and I'm like, wait, is that Nicolas Cage? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he's in this. And then I had to back it up to see him in the restaurant too, and like, and he doesn't speak, and he's got a different name. It's awesome. I think that's so funny.
So one of the first things I'm getting into some of the facts of this, but I wanted to, as Brad said, when we were 6, we did not watch this movie. This was not suitable for the young eyes and ears of 6-year-olds. But
I was just watching Poltergeist instead.
Yeah, you're watching exactly. Do you guys have any memories? Do you remember the first time that you happened to watch this film?
I don't know that I remember the first time specifically, but I don't even know if I can for sure say that I didn't watch it as a 6-year-old, or at least it was shortly after, because it was on TV a lot. And so it was edited versions, obviously. But I just remember bits and pieces of it, at least seeing it, because it was on pretty frequently. And so I remembered all the characters, especially Spicoli. I think he's the most memorable one, especially for a kid. But I remember quoting the lines at a pretty young age. So I can't say that I recall the first specific time that I watched it. We did watch it a lot in college, though, that's for sure. It was one that was on our regular, what's the word I'm looking for?
Rotation.
Rotation. That's one word.
That's a tough one. That'll get you.
I was thinking of a different word, though. That's not it. But it was in our repertoire. Maybe, I don't know if that makes sense. But just great movie. Love it, start to finish. It's just a lot of fun. It's light on plot, but it's just fun. And I think it set the stage for almost all of the other 80s teen movies that came out shortly thereafter.
So, similar to Pete, I'm not sure when I first saw the movie, but I know I was very young. I'm gonna guess I might have been 8 or 9 when I saw it. Maybe even younger. Who knows? Because we had HBO, as I've said a million times.
Oh yeah, with your big satellite dish, yada yada yada. We know.
I am, super fan of 16 Candles. So any movie like that was going to be something I wanted to see. And so when I went into this movie as a kid, I expected 16 Candles, but it's not really like that. It's a lot more serious. The themes are much more heavy. So a lot of it probably went over my head. But Sean Penn was great. As an adult, Ray Walston is just as great. But Sean Penn was great, and you knew there were still funny parts throughout. Damone was cool. What's interesting to me as a kid is that there's the very famous scene in this movie. I think we all know what scene that is. Or if you might even have the timestamp of that movie, I don't know, of that scene. But
I had tattooed in a particular part of my body.
But for some reason, the ones that stuck out to me more, not like, oh my God, I got to see this, but just I remember seeing Jennifer Jason Leigh naked more than Phoebe Cates. Like that stuck in my head.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Whatever. Maybe it's because she was actually having sex while we saw her naked, and so that's like in my head, like, oh my God, what's happening here? I don't know if that's what it was. But obviously the Phoebe Cates thing is like the most famous thing in an 80s movie. But until I got a little older, I remembered the other ones even more so. It's kind of fun. So I've seen it many, many, many times since. Although I will say, while I love the movie and remember basically all of it very much, there was a part at the end that I kind of forgot about. And so it'll be when we get to the end of the movie, I did kind of find that I did forget a little piece or two here in the very close to the end.
So you remember the nude scenes more so with Jennifer Jason Leigh than with Phoebe Cates. So what you're saying is this Brad was less likely to do what the Brad in the movie did to the Phoebe Cates scene. I got you.
Brad wasn't old enough to do anything like that or think about that. He was just like, what am I seeing?
So this movie, if I remember correctly, was on the HBO tapes that I got from Uncle Jerry. So I would have watched this, probably, 88, 89, somewhere around in there. So perfect age for me to see this movie. And like Pete said, Spicoli, is the guy who sticks with you. And, wasn't in high school yet when I saw it. So, looking forward to all the hijinks and craziness of high school and, maybe things that could happen in high school. Very much excited a young Giff. Of course, as Brad said,
Did
this
it happen?
not the way I would have liked them to, but there was definitely some embarrassment that happened. So
yes,
that was
there
definitely
are plenty of times where, remember what Brad was doing?
Yes,
That's it.
That was definitely a case of what was going on.
And they capture that embarrassment in
Yeah.
in that scene, and with like just the awkwardness in the pool, house, and like throughout the movie, they really capture that the way kids, really would get
Right.
under many circumstances, not just sex, even though there's so much sex in the movie.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the original rating for this movie was X.
That's right.
And the reason for it was the sex and full frontal male nudity, primarily in that changing room, the pool house scene.
Could have seen Damone's wiener.
Yes. So they cut that down significantly in order to get it to the R rating. So
And Amy Heckerling. So
Mhm.
it's interesting. It's all these famous scenes and everything, and it's a woman director, which obviously she put those in there, but she wanted the male nudity too to balance that out. Like she did want that quiddy, but with the rating, it didn't work out that way. So,
which nowadays is a lot more common to see, the gratuitous wiener shot rather than maybe the gratuitous boob shot in a lot of comedies.
Speaking of, this week I got to guest about Popstar again on Soundtrack Your Life, and Gifford, you watch that. That's got one of the most elongated, ridiculous wiener scenes you'll ever see.
Elongated.
The window elongated it even more.
God, so
as
good.
opposed to it being cut down like in the other movie.
You don't want to have a
cut it off too.
Yeah, you don't want to have a cropped wiener scene. Is basically
No.
what happened in this movie. So yeah, they cut that scene down significantly. But I think, as Brad said, they captured that awkwardness, the uncertainty. You're just gonna kind of go with it, and then it's over in a flash, and it's just left with awkwardness and hard feelings and everything. So she did do a great job of capturing that. This movie is based on Cameron Crowe's experience posing as a high school student in what was it, Claremont High School in San Diego, also referred to as a whale's vagina.
Yes, locals.
So I mean, how crazy is that? I guess I didn't find out how old he was when he did this, but to actually enroll in a school, be undercover and get the feel for high school at that age. The character of Mark Ratner was based on a gentleman that he met there, and he ended up writing like dummies books, like Microsoft for Dummies and things like that, I believe. So he grew up to be a famous dude. And in 2005, this movie was inducted into the National Film Registry. You guys got any other fun facts that you might have for this one?
The part about him spending a year undercover reminded me of when I first started teaching. There was actually a book that came out. It was called Class Dismissed, and there's a couple books with that name, so you got to find the right one. But it's called Class Dismissed, and it came out, I believe, in like 2001, and it was an author who spent a year at Prior Lake High School, right down the road here from us.
Oh, really?
I think in like 99 or something. And I read that book, and it was so good. It was really interesting. And it was the same basic experience as this, but being a local school, it was kind of fascinating to read that. It's one I maybe should go back to and check out again someday. Mm-hmm. So that was a connection. My son and I just a year ago were in Sherman Oaks, California. We stayed there when we went to Universal, and this was filmed at the Sherman Oaks Galleria after hours. Yep. I got a couple of, you probably have this too, but Tom Hanks, Justine Bateman, Matthew Broderick, and Jodie Foster were all considered or even offered roles for the big parts of this movie, and either turned them down or, for one reason or another, did not end up there.
Yeah, I had Tom Hanks for the role of Brad.
Which,
I could see that.
I could see that.
He's in Bosom Buddies. It doesn't feel like he'd be too old.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's Hanks. I mean, this would be a great role for him because he was just so gangly.
He could have definitely done it at that age.
I mean,
in
I'm sure. I just feel like if he's in a TV show already where he's playing an adult, right? Then you'd think that would be weird, but
I
don't remember the
Tom
time
Hanks. You can't tell Tom Hanks he's not fit for the role, for any role. But Judge Reinhold was absolutely perfect. I absolutely loved him in everything he does, and I always felt actually like Judge Reinhold should have been in more stuff. He was in a couple of, he was in a few really great movies, and yeah,
Cop.
Yeah.
What would you say, Brad?
Again?
That he was a thing in the 80s.
He was a thing.
Sure.
He was in 48 Hours. He was in Ruthless People. He was in obviously this movie. He was in an episode of Seinfeld as the close talker.
Yes,
I think he was in the movie Vice Versa. He was in one of those body switching movies, the one with Fred Savage.
Oh, with Fred Savage. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Did you know though that this also had a short-lived TV series, and it was Patrick Dempsey who played Damone on there, and they did have the two teachers, Vincent Chiavelli and Ray Walston, actually came back to play those parts, but it lasted, I think, less than a season. It did not work out well.
Seems like a weird choice for Damone. I wouldn't picture Patrick Dempsey as Damone, but I don't know. I never saw the show.
He seems too clean cut for kind of this. I mean, Damone's not, but kind of this edgy, supposed to be kind of this, not really a tough guy. But yeah, I agree.
Right. If you could pick a different actor, maybe a young Patrick Swayze could have done that, or I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing names out.
Well, I've always wondered if Damone and D'Annunzio from Caddyshack are like long lost brothers.
Yeah, that's good.
They are very similar with similar names and seemingly similar backgrounds. So,
and
you didn't know.
Yeah. Speaking of weird, you mentioned Broderick. He was up for the role of Spicoli. Now, I don't know anybody who could have done that better than Penn. I mean, he was absolutely amazing in that
Certainly
role.
Not Matthew Broderick.
No.
But what I think is funny is that if you saw Sean Penn today, or even a few years later, you'd never think he could play that role either, because he's basically distanced himself as far from that role as you possibly could.
Right.
And it's pretty amazing that that's put him on the map. And then he turned to this big, serious, award-winning actor and everything afterwards.
Tom Hanks. I mean, Sean Penn is just such a great actor. You could put him in any role, and I think he would be outstanding. And this was a perfect example.
Right. One of the fun facts I have here is Jennifer Jason Leigh went to work for 3 weeks at Perry's Pizza at Sherman Oaks Galleria.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
To get ready for this role. She also went through her old yearbooks to try to get back in that mindset of being, what is she, a sophomore in high school during this film?
I'm guessing a sophomore because she's 15, and so I'm guessing she's not in high school when it starts, which is kind of jarring to think about what her character does. But I'm guessing it's a high school.
Right.
But what's interesting, I think too, she's playing clearly the younger friend. Like, you think Phoebe Cates is at least 1 to 2 years older than her, but in real life, Jennifer Jason Leigh is actually older than Phoebe Cates.
Right.
She's like a year older than her. So when you look at him, though, she looks younger. She can play the younger role much more. You just assume she's younger, but she's not.
Yep. We also have Taylor Nygren.
Taylor Negron, you found him, the pizza guy.
Played the pizza guy. I thought it was interesting in the credits he was played himself, not pizza delivery guy, but himself. I thought that was kind of interesting way to put that.
A carpet? You want an area rug?
We've, as you said, Mike Damone. We've got Robert Romanus. Yep. One thing I do like, I've said this before, that all these 80s movies, the nerd in it is usually Brian. There's so many nerds that are Brian. Well, Mark Ratner is the nerd in this movie, but his real name is Brian Backer. So we got it we got it in there that the Brian is still the nerd in the 80s high school movie.
And I think it's interesting too, this movie that's this iconic movie. It's in the film registry. Almost all these people went on to like something, if not huge careers. But the two main male leads in this, like, you never heard from them again. I mean, I'm sure they were in something, but like for me, I have no idea what they were in.
No.
Right.
Bone and Ratner, to be clear. But then you've got the two stoners who never really speak, Eric Stoltz and Anthony Edwards. Like, you don't even know they're in it if you're not looking closely. They're big stars, and they're just the little sidekicks to Spicoli.
And non-speaking role, Nick, what was it? Coppola is still putting out 2 movies a year. You know, he's massive in every way and having a little bit of a renaissance here too. We also have in this, who was the hot girl? In a car.
Nancy Wilson. Heart.
Yes, Nancy Wilson. There you go.
Who went on and married Cameron Crowe.
That's correct.
Which that always, I knew that fun fact, but it always threw me off too, because like this movie's from 82, and she's supposed to be this, hot young girl, which she is, but like Hart, but then I had to look at, so she was in Hart at like 18. Like she was in there way young. And so by the time this movie came out, she isn't that old. But you would think she'd be older because she'd been in this band for so long.
Right. Do you guys have anything else on our cast? Go ahead.
You didn't say Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker.
Oh, yes, Forrest Whitaker.
I mean, come on. Charles Jefferson.
Yep. I thought he just flew in names.
So Ray Walston is the Mr. Hand, iconic role. And then Vincent Chiavelli is Mr. Vargas. Both teachers are great. Vincent Chiavelli was in a bunch of stuff in the 80s. I believe, wasn't he on the Dorf? Wasn't he like the sidekick to Tim Conway on the Dorf videos?
You know what? For some reason, I think that's right, because I was just watching those the other day.
That's like where I knew him from as a kid, was those videos, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which is amazing. And then there's one more, too. Well, you mentioned Cameron Crowe, of course, the writer. But Amanda Weiss.
Amanda Weiss, yeah.
Lisa, she's in Better Off Dead, which we have an episode on Better Off Dead. It's great. And she's so good at dumping people. She dumps Lane, she dumps Brad. Then she's in Cheers. She's girlfriend with Woody there for an episode or two as well. So we can't leave her out because she's like 80s royalty blonde girl.
Yeah, she's fun to look at for sure. So sweet.
Yeah, it's like all these little tiny roles. They're all somebody. It's amazing how this cast shook out.
Yeah, it's an excellent ensemble. Well, I'm gonna do our little synopsis here for those that aren't familiar with the movie. I'm sure everybody is, but this is one of those things we've gotten into doing. So we're just gonna
we cater to a younger generation too, so they may not be as familiar with this movie. So go ahead and watch it if you're over 18.
It may be that they know the movie, but need a little reminder before we get into some details.
That could be.
So, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a spirited romp about a year in the life of students Stacy, Mark, Mike, Linda, Brad, and Jeff Spicoli, among others. The kids maneuver their way through the uncertainty of jobs, relationships, and sex. Stacy and Mark are blessed to have older and wiser friends in Linda and Mike to help them navigate these new and confusing experiences. Brad is a senior with everything going for him, and stoner Jeff hasn't a care in the world. Along with an awesome soundtrack and lots of early 80s nostalgia, Fast Times is the kind of movie you wished represented your time in high school.
Wow, that was good.
Soundtrack, by the way, that's a great. I mean, the first 3 songs or so are just utter bangers.
Yes.
American Girl. Well, we got the beat in the credits.
Yep.
You got American Girl by Tom Petty, and then you got Somebody's Baby, which plays twice actually, Jackson Browne. I mean, and it turns out in those 3 songs, I don't think any of them are actually on the soundtrack, which it's still a good soundtrack without those. But those are just all-time 80s classics or 70s even, if in the case of.
I just want to say something. Sorry, I just want to say something because just before we hit record, Gifford was really fretting over this synopsis, and I thought he nailed it perfectly, as he always does.
Yeah, it's very kind. I love that Somebody's Baby is basically Stacy's banging tune. We hear
Yeah,
it
right.
twice.
Such a nice song. So sweet.
Yep. We hear it twice, and the second time it does cut off rather quickly, and I like that they did that because Damone, he was a 2-pump chump, and so the song gets cut off. The song gets cut off about as quickly as he does. So I thought that was outstanding. But yeah, the music is wonderful. Like you got Oingo Boingo, Jimmy Buffett, Eagles songs that are covered during the school dance at the end, Wooly Bully. Yeah, there's just
hardly any of those are on the soundtrack either. I'd have to look back and see what's actually on the soundtrack because so many of those I read aren't on it.
Somebody's Baby is on there.
Well, that one is. Okay.
So Much in Love.
American Girl is not. I don't think We Got the Beat is either.
No, We Got the Beat is not on there. And then of course, the Cars.
Oh yeah, that's not on there either, right? Moving in Stereo.
Yeah, Moving in Stereo. There's 2 songs in my life that carry me back to a particular scene or show, and that's one of them. And the other one is Everybody's Working for the Weekend, the SNL skit with Swayze and
the
Chippendales skit. So every time I hear those songs, I'm transported back to those 2 things. So, yeah, again, music is awesome. You guys want to get into your favorite scenes of this movie?
Well, can I go first? Because my favorite scene in the whole movie is probably the opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you have We Got the Beat playing, you're immediately in, but it's all in the mall. And all these mall scenes, I mean, god damn, the mall was cool. The kids, you see all the different kids, all the sites, all the stores, all the different places where they're working, just the energy of all the people in there, set to the music, meeting some of the characters. That's, you're immediately hooked. And there's a lot of scenes I like, but I think that's probably my favorite scene of them all is that one right there.
Well, I just want to add to that point because in the opening, probably 2 minutes of that mall scene, it does such great character development of of most of the characters involved, just because you learn who they are so quickly. You learn who Damone is. He's already scalping tickets at the mall. You learn who kind of the nerdy guys working at the theater. You learn the girls are talking about boys and sex and whatever, and so it just kind of compacts the character development in that one scene.
Yeah. $20 for Van Halen.
Yeah, can you imagine $12.50? What was it? First 15 rows.
First 6 rows.
Yeah, I mean, holy crap! Ticketmaster really has done a number on ticket prices in this country. If you could see Van Halen in '82 for $12.50, right down front.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and for us as well, now watching it back at this point,
it's the nostalgia.
Just the nostalgia coming in. I mean, you've got with the clothes, the music, the mall scene is just absolutely wonderful. You've got Pat Benatar clones running around.
3 of them.
That was just absolutely great. So, yeah, a lot of fun. Just in that first scene, and it sets the stage. Like, I mean, whether you're watching it then or you're watching it now, it definitely transports you to that time.
And I don't like the whole things were better then and whatever. Pete, he's always talking about how music sucks now and it used to be good. And I'm going to disagree on that to some point, but it truly was better. Nobody's on a phone. Everybody's in the mall having a good time, talking and working and doing a job, and it's just it's a better time than what you have kids doing today, laying around. And I mean, there's great kids and my kids are great, blah blah blah, but if they had a place to congregate like that and actually be around people more, and it's such a cool. And then I don't know, it's great. I miss it.
Totally agree.
And definitely a different environment than what we grew up in. It's not like the Marshall Mall was the place to go, but like if you got to go to Sioux Falls,
and it wasn't too far to go to Sioux Falls enough, right, often that you still got to experience it.
Right.
But even up into like middle school and high school, whenever we came up here, how many of us spent so many at the Burnsville Mall? I spent so many hours at the Burnsville Mall before I ever even lived anywhere near Burnsville. It was like we all knew it.
Right. Well, and then I was thinking too, watching the beginning of this, like one of our other favorite movies from the 90s, Mallrats, just pushes you forward a decade and you still got all that great, commerce and people, that's where they go. They go to the mall to hang out, to see who's there, to be seen. And certainly a different time before the advent of cell phones and everybody looking down all the time.
When we did our Stranger Things episode 2, we talked about, our favorite seasons. And my favorite season, I think it was season 3, the one that was set in the mall. That was by far my favorite season, mostly because of the mall. And it was similar to this, this show here. And again, shout out to Children of the 80s because they got to see that mall and they live right by there. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah. What I would like to say is let's go to the mall today.
Today.
Pete, do you have a scene that you really enjoyed besides the first one?
Well, that's kind of the one that I had too. But I do I think if we're going in chronological order here, not long after this, we're introduced to Spicoli in the fast food restaurant where him and his boys walk in with their shirts on, but they take them off immediately. Yeah. And then they sit down and you're introduced also to Judge Reinhold as Brad. And the whole thing about how the sign says no shirt, no shoes, no dice.
Oh, dice.
How they're mocking the sign just exactly as we would have back then too. And it's another thing that I don't know if you get that as much anymore either. But
and it's a line from Brad, know it, love it. What does he say? Love it,
learn it, know it, live it.
That's learn it, know it, live it. Yeah.
But it's kind of a bookend. It's kind of a bookend because that's pretty much right at the beginning of the movie. And then those two don't really interact at all during the course of the whole movie until the very end. They have that scene together, which Brad, maybe that's the scene you're talking about. Right.
Okay.
Right.
We'll get to
I
that.
actually remember that because Courtney asked me, she goes, how does this movie end? And I go, I think it's in the convenience store, and Brad is, saves the day and, is all heroic and, finally unleashes all of his frustration that he's been feeling all year because things didn't really go his way the way he thought they would be. So, yeah. I'll be that guy. We brought it up already. I'm going to say
pool scene.
The pool scene. Yeah, the pool scene is absolutely outstanding. I like the interaction between our four main characters. I mean, it's awkward to start. I mean, the guys show up. Damone's wearing a collared jacket. Mike is wearing a collared shirt. Damone's got the hat on. Like, they look like just complete dweebs coming over. And Mike just, hey, we're just going to go in there. They like it. They like the attention. And just the overall awkwardness of the entire beginning of the scene is great. Poor Brad comes home. He's upset, but he's going to turn his day around quickly. So I could understand that side of things as well. So, and then of course we have the visuals, and hey, don't forget about the great music. So that was the scene that always stuck with me, growing up. So I have to mention it here.
Another one, I will just any scene with Spicoli and Mr. Hand. Those are all gold. I mean, the pizza scene, when he first comes in and he won't let him in, and then he tells him to go to the office and he rips up his schedule. I mean, and the thing is, Mr. Hand is such a classic old school teacher, but then he has his ending too. I mean, they have a happy ending together, and it's like maybe that's a little unbelievable, but I mean, it's awesome. And so you get to see them fight, you see them spar, you see Mr. Hand actually cares. So any scene with those two is probably my next on the list. As a teacher, especially, I mean, I can relate in almost everything he says and does. But I also love how, as much as he rips on Spicoli, the other kids in the class are just eating it up. They love it. They think Mr. Hand is funny. They think he's great. It looks like most of it, and I love that too. So,
you dick.
Yeah, that last scene at the end, I really like. I just think it's hilarious. We get to see the inside of Spicoli's room, and it's just plastered top to bottom with Playboy foldouts. And Mr. Hand just comes right on in. He sits down, brought the extra textbook, and he's gonna, try to pound into this idiot's brain some form of U.S. history.
But also the reason he's doing it is to get his time back that Spicoli wasted, and he wants to even the score on his time. But he's still doing something good for him.
Right. But at the same time, as a teacher, would you ever do that? Would you take your own personal time?
Oh God, no.
No.
Especially to a guy like that, a guy like Spicoli.
Right.
No.
Going into his house.
Well, and then I just love at the end of the scene when Mr. Hand's leaving and he looks at the wall and sees what's on there and he just shakes his head like, oh my God, like this is this kid. Like he is
What
gonna.
the hell did he expect?
Right. Oh God.
It's a lot of naked pictures.
It's it's months and years and years worth of Playboy centerfolds on those walls.
One of my favorite scenes that is not ever talked about, but it's a really hilarious scene for me. It's when Judd Reinhold, or Brad, is in the bathroom, looking in the mirror, giving himself a pep talk, like really trying to motivate himself, but it says "big hairy pussy" on it.
Yes, he's got to clean that up.
But that's sitting right there as he's trying to give his pep talk.
Yeah, that's pretty outstanding. I like the some of the scenes between Mike and Mark when you kind of getting to understand the kind of guy Mike is. He's got a plan. He knows how everything is supposed to go all the time, or at least he acts like he does.
He's one of those guys, right, he'll say all that stuff, but deep down he has no clue what he's doing, and he's actually a total loser and a total nerd. But he's created the persona to try to fool people, especially somebody like Mark, who thinks he's probably looking up to him all the time.
Well, and both of our older friend characters are the same way, because Linda's the same. She's like that nerd who's got a girlfriend in Canada.
Yeah.
She's always talking about the guy.
Who is this fiance? How are they engaged? Like, what? There's a whole story there. Like, is it even real? It's like,
no.
And is she one of these people who hasn't even maybe ever had sex, even though she talks about it all the time?
Right. I've always thought that, is it Doug?
I think so. Yeah.
I always thought that he was fake, that she was making him up the whole time to give herself credibility. She gives the blowjob lesson, like, this is how you do it. She says, well, how long did he last? Oh, Doug lasts, 15 to 20 minutes. And, is it best when he goes first, or you go first, or you go together? And yeah, I think that it's two things. One, she wants to seem more mature, and she likes getting this attention from a younger girl. And two, as smoking hot as she is, this is a defense mechanism to keep all the guys off of her. So if she's taken, then why even bother trying? So I don't think she's probably had sex. I don't know, but maybe she had a bad experience and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna make up this boyfriend. And that's the same with Mike. Like, I love his 5-point plan. This is one of the things that I absolutely love. And he walks Mark right through it. So
and he can tell you from memory.
Right. So you let her know how much, you don't let her know how much you like her, right? So you got to act,
But then he acts it out too. That's the best part of this. Is
that's the best part.
He'll give you a little sneak preview of how you should do it.
Like, hey, how are you? And then you call all the shots. Like, you let her know what's going on. Number 3, this is the one I love. Wherever you're at is the place to be. And then he turns and goes, hey, isn't this great?
That's my favorite one too. Isn't this great?
And when you go out to dinner, you find out what she's ordering, and then you order for her. It looks classy.
Classy move.
Right. And then the last thing is the music. When it comes time to make it out, side 1 of Led Zeppelin 4. And then you see him in the car, Mark and
well, that's where Mark didn't really listen.
Linda in the car, and that's what he's got.
It's it's when it's time to make out you put it on, not when you're just driving down the road. It doesn't work that way there. So
No.
There's a little bit of trivia there too, though, because the song that they played wasn't actually from Zeppelin 4, because there was some kind of a dispute where they couldn't get the rights for that song in time, and so it's a different song that was not on Zeppelin 4, even though it was clearly intended to be.
Sure.
I think they would just change the name of what he said then to whichever album.
You would think. I don't know.
Well, and who knows? He said it's time for making out. Well, maybe Mark was looking for a little roadhead. Maybe he thought things would start on the way to the restaurant.
Well, yeah, I don't think so.
No.
And this movie can even qualify as a Christmas movie too. This is another part I forgot. You have Winter Wonderland by the Ronettes, and that's another great mall scene. And it's kind of a decent chunk there takes place over the Christmas season too. So that's another thing that makes it fun, because we all love Christmas here at Pop Culture Yearbook.
We sure
I
do.
have a question for you. None of us went to high school in California.
No, we didn't.
Does football season normally come after Christmas?
I guess never even thought of that or noticed that.
Because after the Christmas, holiday season, we have the scene where Spicoli and the guy's brother go out and wreck his car, and then it's like the high school game where they're going to kill Lincoln. They're going to assassinate
Lincoln. I love the buttons. Assassinate Lincoln.
And obviously that's homecoming, the big homecoming game, right, against your rival, and he goes out and beats the living crap out of everybody. So that's the one thing to me that's a little off.
Since you brought up a question, I've got one too I wanted to ask.
All right.
How does Stacy, a sophomore, seemingly have U.S. history with all these people who are all different ages? They're like all in the same class. Wouldn't U.S. history be like a required sophomore class or a junior class? That's usually how it works. But I don't know. 1982 in California, maybe not.
Biology
is very
is the
smart.
same thing. The biology class that they're in, there's seniors in there, there's juniors, there's all kinds of.
True. I guess that one maybe I could see as more of like a elective, that like anatomy.
Sure.
So I don't know. Anyway, it is interesting that they're all different ages, but they seem to have the classes together.
The scene with the car where the car gets destroyed, that reminded me a lot of Risky Business, because the same kind of thing happens in that movie, where the fancy car gets destroyed and they've got to come up quickly with a plan to repair it. Well, in this one, they didn't actually repair it; they just made it look like it was somebody else that did it. But it was still very similar to me.
Right.
Yeah. And then one more of the school scenes too. I love. There's a scene towards the end. It's like finals, and all the different ways the kids are cheating is hilarious too.
Right.
First of all, they're all looking at each other, and then whenever Chevelli turns around, they sit back. But one's got it on the leg, and one's got it on their eye patch, and like Spice Like Us, and it's just the different ways the kids would go to try to cheat. Back when you kind of could even cheat, which is not even that easy to do anymore. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, now you don't have to, because you get like a cheat sheet or whatever. It seems like.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that anymore. Is what I'm saying.
Correct. Yep.
Bring back cheating again.
Going back to that car scene, that was one of my favorite lines from the movie. Is Spicoli saying that I could fix it. My dad's a TV repairman. He's got all these killer tools. And, the little brother's like, you can't fix this, Spicoli. And he looks out, he crawls out the window. I can fix it. Like, he's just.
There's got to be 500 pounds of cinder blocks on the hood.
Yeah. For as dumb as that guy seems, I mean, coming up with the idea of blaming it on the rival school.
That's brilliant.
Genius.
Not only that, but like you'd think this guy wouldn't even have a concept of football or sports or homecoming, that he wouldn't even care or know about it. So to connect all those things together to get out of it and get Jefferson all riled up, it does take an outlook that maybe is not realistic for Jeff Spicoli.
Correct. Yep.
I think we've gone past the scene where Brad is back at the fast food restaurant, or well, he's working. He serves the breakfast, and the guy, the dick guy comes in and demands his money back. He's like, yeah, I think you need to fill out a form or something. He has no idea what to do.
Yeah, that guy's
And then
nuts.
ultimately that's how he gets fired. And it was all over $2.75.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, it doesn't even say you get your money back. It just says guaranteed. And so,
What does guaranteed mean?
well, I know exactly what does it mean. So it's like he's making that up. But
Well, and I mean, he's such a freaking douche. And then as soon as the manager comes out, he starts acting like a victim. Like, oh, this kid, threatened me with violence and used profanity. If I was Brad, I would have waited outside for that freaking guy.
I'm gonna kick 100% of your ass.
Like, what a dink. God, I hated that guy.
Kind of one last scene I would want to bring up is that this isn't a funny scene, but the movie gets pretty serious with the whole abortion and everything.
A little bit.
But I love, Damone is just a true asshole. Leaves her, doesn't help her at all. I love how Big Brother Brad takes care of her. It's really kind of a sweet scene and shows, because they're brother and sister, but it's nice to see this relationship that they had. But then on top of that, too, the way that her friend stands up for her and gets revenge by basically saying he's got a little prick every single place she can. I like that too. And Damone deserves that. So I like to see how these help out young Stacy, who didn't deserve what she had to do.
I can't believe that Mark at the end forgave Mike for what he did.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I could see that either way.
Yeah, but it's not that he just maybe he made out with her or that he, they did it. He knocked her up and then left her just that's it. I'm not even going to help. I'm not going to show up for you. It's so despicable.
Well, okay, though, but does Mike actually know all that? Does he know about the abortion or just that they had sex? Because he might not know all that other stuff.
That's true. Not.
I don't know. It never really shows us that he knows that, right? That might just be between Brad and Linda and Mike.
Yeah, it might be.
Stacy.
That could be. I did
he still has every right to write off Damone and say, you fuck you, but that would be worse if he knew that as well.
One of the lines I did write down was the scene between Mark and Mike in the locker room when Mark confronts him. And at the end of it all, Damone goes, I woke up in a great mood. I don't know what happened. I mean, he brushes it off so fast. I mean, he's such a skis bag. It's just awful.
You on to lines now, then?
Yeah, we'll do the lines here.
So you dick that Pete already said is one of my favorites, but Mr. Hand, I just love the line. First of all, he's handing back papers and announcing everybody's grade out loud. I love that. That's awesome. What are you people? Dope?
Oh, yes. And then at the end of the movie, when they're doing the little what everybody's up to now, and Mr. Hand is convinced that everybody is in fact on dope. Yeah.
I had.
Go ahead.
Another one. Damone, as much of a dick as he had a bunch of great lines. A couple that I had by Damone was, "You don't care whether she comes, stays, lays, or prays." And then when he goes when he's waiting in the house later, just before he has sex in a pool house, he makes such a big deal of the iced tea. He's just sitting there. Do you have any iced tea? And then later, this is great iced tea.
Well, he's doing his thing. This is the place to be.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
I think it's awkwardness because he knows he's going to get in trouble and do something he shouldn't do, and he doesn't know how to get out of the situation, and he doesn't want to do that, but he's not going to say no to Stacy. He's going to.
Right.
I read that one was much more about just being awkward and not knowing what to say in the situation.
Can we bring up just how horny Stacy really is in this movie? I mean,
she had it drilled into her by Linda that that's what she needs to do, and she doesn't really if you're not doing that, then you're not worth it.
Yeah, but she's definitely going after it because first off, we got Ron Johnson, right? The stereo salesman.
Who's 26 and she's 15. 26.
And he's fine going after a 19-year-old for crying out loud. I mean, that's pretty I'm not cool with that either.
It's not just that. Their date is simply, where do you want to do? Well, let's go to the point. Okay, we immediately take our clothes off. That's the whole thing. It's like, wow.
Well, and
if
why
only
would
it was that easy.
And you can tell if
he have
she's
his own
not.
house or apartment.
You can tell if she's 15 versus 19. I would think. I don't know.
You would think, but I mean,
I don't know. I mean, she is like 20 in the movie, but she looks very young. I mean,
right. And then she says that, that he kind of moves on. So she said, well, he hasn't called since November. And this is, of course, during the Christmas season. So who knows how many times she went after it there. She goes after Mark. No, she goes after Mark on their date. She invites him back in. She gets stripped down into a robe, has him come into her room. The parents aren't home.
That scene is so painful to watch too, because I can just totally relate to Mark in there. I mean, I would do the same thing as him. I would just be freaked out. And it's so sad.
I like to think I would not do what he did at that stage of my life, but I don't know. It's hard to say. But then when she runs into Mike after school before they go to her house, Mike tells her, hey, Mark really likes you. Yeah, and she just goes right past and goes, but I like you. So she's like, she goes after him. She absolutely does.
Yeah.
So I mean,
she definitely grew a fondness for that activity.
Yeah, she's a good time gal.
One of my other line is has nothing to do with most any of the main characters, but it's such a classic line in the football game. Jefferson's just killing it. And the one kid says, wow, does he really live here? Thought he just flew in for games.
Games, yep. That's a great one. I got a couple from Spicoli here. The one towards the end where he's talking on the phone, he's got the "I'm so wasted." Like you hear that in all kinds of stuff. I love that. What's that?
Oh, gnarly.
Another one when they're at the hospital doing the tour, and
you in my class?
Mr. Vargas asks him, "Are you in my class?" He goes, "I am today." That's a great one. And then the first time that he meets, I believe it's the first time he meets Mr. Hand, and he goes, Jeff Spicoli, and he goes, "That's the name they gave me." I just think that's such a cool line. He's just
so oblivious too. He's walking in, and everybody can tell the teacher is just pissed and making a fool of him, and he's just smiling like, "Oh, big deal, nothing to worry about."
Oh yeah,
he skipped over the one where Spicoli is having the dream sequence where he's a surfer being interviewed. And he goes, just like the guy I told, just like I told the guy on ABC, danger is my business. I always thought about that one.
My line that I like from that one is where he goes, "That's a nice jacket. Where'd you get it?" And the guy's like, gave it to me."
That's a good one. I always thought that scene seemed kind of forced. Did that really need to be in there? It's
I thought it was funny.
Spicoli's already pretty great, so it seems like that one's too much, but it doesn't really advance the plot or anything, but it's still funny.
No. I do like that his friends cruise around in a VW Bug. I mean, that is about as spot on of a...
And then every time the door opens, the smoke just pours out. That was another thing I remembered as a kid. Not really understanding what that meant, but, knowing that was supposed to be funny.
Right.
All I need are some tasty waves, a cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Oh. Well, and that goes back to the last scene. This last scene is just great because Brad's on his third job of the school year, finally working at the Mighty Mart, and Spicoli comes in and he's absolutely stoned to the bejesus belt. Got into some of that
California Sesame, Kentucky Bluegrass.
Yeah, he got into the Spangler bench. He probably just got done playing 36 holes. And he comes in, he's like, "Hey, I know you." It's like, well, no shit, like you go to the same high school. And then of course the robber comes in and Spicoli distracts him long enough for Brad to throw the hot water in his face or hot coffee in his face and jump over the counter and get his gun. And that was just great. I mean, I felt so good for Brad at that moment, just so he could kind of release all this frustration that he's felt throughout the whole year, and he's finally on top. He finally had this great moment, and is going to be
Oh.
lauded for it.
And I'm glad you brought that back up, because one of the things I like a lot about this movie is just the whole ending. The Hand and Spicoli happy ending. Mike and Stacy at the mall, like they're gonna date. I mean, that's gonna hope at least as for young, it's gonna work out at least temporarily. Brad gets his shining moment. It's and none of it seems like ridiculous. I mean, I guess maybe you could say this, Robert, but none of it seems like it's just ridiculous and out of place. It's awesome, and everybody kind of gets what you feel like maybe they deserve.
Yeah. The only thing that might have been a little out of place for us is that there was a guy in high school who was popular named Brad.
He's only popular for a while, and then he definitely falls off the map throughout the movie, if you didn't notice.
Well, and it's nice that he ends up working in a convenience store.
That's true. He's just
right?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah,
I don't see Brad throwing a coffee
Yeah.
pot in a Robert's face. Sorry.
No? Oh, I don't know. I could see that. Push comes to shove. Brad's gonna stand up.
Brad would just be like, and then he would just go, give him the money. Here's your money.
He wouldn't get mad. He would just be really disappointed.
Yep.
Okay, enough about me.
All right, you guys got anything else on this great movie?
It's a really, really good movie. Really fun to watch. It hasn't been that long since, I don't know when I watched it last, but I see it occasionally. But it was really fun to watch it again. And some of the stuff I picked out, like all these characters that I knew were in there, but you forget about. It's just there's so many little, like, they're not really Easter eggs, but so many little things that you can just pick out every time. It's wonderful.
The runtime was only an hour and a half too, so it's a pretty short movie. And
Perfect.
For as much as they packed into the movie, I mean, there was no downtime at all. You never felt bored. It was always go, go, go.
There you go. So far this year, between When Harry Met Sally and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, we've proven that 90 minutes is more than enough for a great movie.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So, in honor of our subject for tonight, we are going to draft our top 5 80s teen comedies. I believe we did this for the 90s. Might have did it for the 2000s. So
we've never done a draft. We made lists at one point a long time ago, but this will be a little more in depth than whatever we had done before.
So I'm going to have the first pick, followed by Pete, and then Brad. This is a really tough one for me. Of course, we have our movie tonight. There's a lot of great options. Man, I think I'm going to go with another show that we covered on this podcast. I'm going to go 16 Candles.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah. I fretted over this pick. This is tough.
I didn't think there was any chance you would pick that first, because that was obviously going to be my pick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your third pick, who knows if it would have got to you?
I thought it would, but I love that you picked it. I think that's great. I just I didn't see that coming at all.
Well, I'm full of support.
All right. Well, then I'm going to take Fast Times.
All right.
Okay, well, and I am going to get a great one. My one after 16 Candles. So I had Fast Times listed third here. My second one is Better Off Dead.
Oh,
I knew you were going to take that one.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, I mean, I thought you would take it. One of you guys would take that, but
I don't want to wait on that one. I want that one. That's one of my. I mean, when it comes to 80s comedies, I think that and 16 Candles are like they speak to me on a different level.
All right, there's two that I really, well, there's a lot that I really want, but there's two I really want here. I'm going to take Back to the Future.
I was wondering, how we're going to define this and what kind of movies we're going to hear listed.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff in there. I mean, everything was
I'm not talking about the funny stuff. I'm talking about the teen part. It revolves, but you got, Doc and everything. So it's fine. I was just curious how far we're going to extend the definition. We never really know where it's going.
I had it on my list, but you're right. I don't think of it when you say teen comedy. I don't necessarily think of it in that category right away. I think of it as like sci-fi.
I'm with you, Pete. I took it off my list, but I figured
it's still fine.
Well,
we don't object to the
in high school. our main character is in high school in 85 and in 55. Like,
It's,
Oh, you're right.
it is all about teenagers.
But there are also, you know, especially with Doc, I mean, there's plenty of adults that are key parts too. So, you know, that's what you could
but
argue.
even many of the adults you see as teenagers, and they're a big part of the movie. So
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's why I put it. It wasn't on some of the lists that I found, but I'm like, it's Marty, man. I mean, he's a high schooler, so
of course.
I'm gonna go with that. All right, Pete, what do you got?
I'm gonna go with Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oops, I'm writing it in the wrong place.
That was the one I was fighting between. Was Ferris and Back to the Future. All right, Brad. This is what I was thought you were gonna take the first time. See if you take it the second time.
Well, I wonder. See, and then my highest ranked one, I don't know if you're going to call it a comedy or not, but it's definitely marketed that way, even though it's kind of like Fast. I'm taking The Breakfast Club.
I knew that's where you're going.
Yeah, well, I know, but it's not, you know, it's not as funny as most of these when you really watch it. But obviously,
but there's so many great funny things in it, and it's.
I know. I didn't know if you were going to argue that it's not a comedy. That's all.
If you can have Back to the Future, you can have Breakfast Club.
Oh, I know. It's definitely teen related.
All right. Well, I'm really surprised by that. Okay. I thought this would have went maybe in the first round, so I'm going to take it here. I'm going because you could still be a teenager in college. So I'm going Revenge of the Nerds.
Okay. Yeah, and I have that here as one of my next ones. Again, the reason why I kept it on is because our main characters are freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
So, because then I was like, you know, what does a college comedy count for this list or not? So, but in this case, you know they're freshmen, so you know they're teens.
Yep.
That's the one you thought I was going to pick.
All right.
I thought you'd pick it one or two.
I nearly picked it as number 2 there, but I think I'll get more votes for The Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club's a great pick.
And I'm trying to win, even though
All right. Oh, go ahead. Even though you what, Brad?
I don't even know what I was going to say. You're up, Pete.
Weird Science.
All right.
I remember watching that one as much as I could.
The older brother. I mean, come on.
During that age.
God rest his soul.
All right. Well, I'm going to take, kind of like Better Off Dead, another one that, you know, is maybe a little too forgotten. But my God, Pete, we watched this with Dave in Moorhead before a marathon, and this is just one of the funniest 80s comedies out there. Teen Wolf.
Yep, that was on my list.
I love some Teen Wolf, baby.
How was that forgotten? I thought there was no way you were going to take it.
It is forgotten, though.
It is not nearly as big as anything else we've mentioned here yet tonight.
That was my next pick. God.
Okay, good. I'm glad I took it then.
Son of a biscuit. Okay, a lot of great ones left, but this one I watched a ton. Could I wait? No, I got it highlighted. I'm going to take it here. Yeah, I'm going to go Risky Business.
God, that's one I was going to take. Again, it's not totally a comedy like some others, but it is a comedy, and that movie covers many genres. Yeah.
I'm taking Booger over and over in mine. I got Revenge of the Nerds and I got Risky Business.
You should have had Better Off Dead too.
Right. Yep.
That was one that would not have been on my radar until we did our episode a year ago on Risky Business, which is a good episode we did, and turns out that was a really fun movie to talk about. And so I had it on my list too. Pete?
All right, my turn. I'm going to go with Adventures in Babysitting.
See, and that's one I did not write down because I've never seen it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I mean, I've only seen it probably 2 or 3 times back, like in the late 80s. So I don't remember it very well. I do know.
We've watched it a couple of times with our kids.
I mean, it deserves to be on the list.
Sure,
but
I'm gonna snipe. I wonder if this is Gifford's next pick, because I know that it's the pick that his wife would want him to take.
I'm glad.
And I'm gonna take Can't Buy Me Love. Speaking of Patrick Dempsey,
All right, you got Courtney's vote.
Good, I hope so, because she always votes for you.
No, we were talking about this last night. She's like, "Are you going to pick Camp?" I'm like, "I don't know that movie that well, but Brad or Pete will definitely pick it."
Really?
Yeah.
I remember we all watched it the first time I saw it. We all watched it together at a party at Jenny Tut's house. Which
I was there for that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I assume you were. If I'm there, if I was there, you were there. I mean, that's
okay.
Anyway.
I don't remember that one. All right. My last one. I watched this one a ton. I loved it. I'm going Johnny Be Good. I feel like I need to pick that. There's probably better ones out there, but if I'm being true to movies that I watched, that was high up there.
For my last pick, I don't know. I haven't watched it anytime recently as an adult or anything, so I don't know if it holds up. But it is one that I watched a lot when it when it was on. Summer School with Mark Harmon and Kirstie Alley.
I haven't seen it since the 80s, but I didn't know if that one's really a teen comedy because it's about, he's the main star and he's an adult teacher. So I didn't know.
But it definitely
but there's kids up the wall.
It's all about he's teaching the kids and making them better and everything. And so it works.
It's more that I don't really remember anything about the movie, so I didn't even know.
Sure. Yeah.
My last one is a movie that is special to me that I've watched more than most people probably have. It's not a great movie, but I love it. And it's got the Coreys in it, and it's got Heather Graham in it, and I love me some License to Drive, and I guarantee you someday we're going to do an episode on License to Drive on this show, because that'll be a fun one to do.
So I have never seen that one either.
So then we definitely need to do an episode on it.
Yep. Yeah. That one was big on all the lists, and I'm like, no, can't write that one down. That one's not in my library. Brad, what else do you have?
Let's see. I had Heathers, which we talked about. Heathers.
Yep.
One that I would have liked to have picked. Again, it's not so much a comedy, and actually, maybe this one isn't a teen comedy, but The Sure Thing with John Cusack. If I remember right, that might be more. He's at the end of his college years, so maybe it's not. But it was listed on some, and it's one that I love.
Okay.
A Valley Girl. Speaking of Nicolas Cage, the next year he was in Valley Girl with Deborah Foreman. She's nice to look at. Say Anything, again, a little more serious, but a big 80s teen movie. I recently watched the movie Lucas, which I hadn't seen since probably like 1987. Do you remember the movie Lucas with Corey Haim and Charlie Sheen and Winona Ryder? Yeah, it didn't hold up at all. I remember that kind of like Savannah Smiles. I remember
Didn't
that.
They mock that?
They did mock it in Not Another Teen Movie when the kid got cut in half.
Oh, that was you know the little wimp on the team that's number 45.
Yeah, that's Pete.
That's Pete.
I did not enjoy it very much, but I'm glad I finally watched it because now at least I know that I don't need to watch it again. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and
that's the last one I had.
Kind of surprised none of you said The Goonies.
Yeah.
Which again, you've got teens and you've got kind of pre-teens, but it's all kids and there's definitely teens. That's such a huge movie that I kind of thought one of you would take that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that when I was thinking younger.
That would have been one of the
first ones I thought. Call. Pete, you got any others?
Everything that I had on my list has been mentioned already in some form or fashion.
Okay.
So,
again, I took Revenge of the Nerds because they were freshmen. How about Back to School? We've got a freshman in that. I mean, I know Dangerfield is your main guy, but there's some teenagers in there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these college ones, you might as well throw them out there.
How about Porky's? That's all based high school. Screwballs was one that I remember watching when I was younger. Pretty in Pink. Footloose. There's some funny stuff in Footloose. That's all.
Isn't Nick Cage in Pretty in Pink as well?
No.
Oh, I thought he was for some reason. It's
Molly Ringwald and Ducky is what's his face from Two and a Half Men.
Yeah.
John
Pryor. Andrew McCarthy.
Pryor. Yep.
That's the John Hughes movie that I do not care about, and I don't even know if it's really not much of a comedy. It's I don't care for that movie.
This was a stretch, but I love it, so I'm going to bring it up anyway. Uncle Buck. There is a one of the main characters is in high school, and you got the bug in there as well. And this is a shout out to one Mr. Joe Groose. I know he loves this movie very, very much. That would be Wildcats. High school.
Yeah, Wildcats. I forgot what you were going for there. Wildcats.
Every time I think of that movie, I think of Joe, so I'm going to throw it on my list as well. So some good stuff all the way around.
This,
sure.
I think, is going to be a really interesting poll this time. I think at least I don't feel like there's a standout obvious winner like sometimes there is. I'm excited to see what happens when this comes out.
Oh, I got this one.
I think anybody could take this poll. I know Courtney's getting your vote, Brad, because not only did you take Can't Buy Me Love, but you were also the one to throw out Say Anything too for an honorable mention. So those are her two big faves.
Well, it's listening.
Yeah.
Hey, I think that closes out our yearbook on page 1982. That was a fun one. That's a fun.
What do we got
month.
next month?
What do we have next month?
We're going to open it up a little later than that to 2003.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what?
21
That's
years.
22 years ago.
Yeah.
Damn.
22 years ago.
For our listeners, aren't we taking a week off next week?
We will have an old one out next week for you for the 5th Monday of the month while Pete is on his spring break vacation anyway. So yeah, we'll put a poll out of which one we should put out.
Well,
it's going to be a Girls Gone Wild type of spring break too. I can't wait.
We could do Back to School. We could do Heathers. We could do 16 Candles. We could do Breakfast Club. We got all those in the can.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We have almost 2. So we'll be celebrating our 200th episode next month too, guys.
Woo!
So there's a few episodes out there in the can, as you say,
right?
That we could pick from.
Speaking of in the can, I got to go on the can now. So we'll wrap it up here. Gifford, do you know what band is always 100% guaranteed?
That is Preacher Row. That is
will get if you're not satisfied, you'll get your $2.75 back. I promise.
That's exactly
on my $2.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
For listening.
See you next month.
No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Next time, tell me on my back. I turn it up to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.